There he is, the one and only Mike Beltran. Now we're going for detective, ref, judge, or how about we call you Ibarra?
Whoa, man, Ibarra's dead.
That's true. That's true. But you never know with these series, man. Sometimes it's a dream or something. And
I hope you're right. Can you guys see me on this, or am I cut off?
No, we can see you. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Welcome.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say, welcome to Junkie Radio. It's been a long time coming. You know, last year we talked to Frank Trigg, good friend of ours, former co-host, and when he told us you were a sheriff and detective, or working for the sheriffs, I was like, God, why haven't we got this guy on the show? Because I've admired your work for so many years. Seeing you, grow as a referee through all these promotions and now getting these title fights. I remember the Fedor fight. So literally going back to last year, we've wanted to get you on the show. Our bad for dropping the ball. We went from 5 days a week to 2 days a week. So sometimes it's a little tougher to, he's in the loop. But really, it's an honor to have you on the show, Mike.
Hey, thank you very much, and thank you for the compliments. I'm just happy to be here.
Well, listen, we're huge fans of Mayans. So first of all, allow us to geek out on that. What was that like for you? I mean, you already lead a pretty interesting life as an MMA referee and judge, and then also working for the sheriffs in Los Angeles, now as a detective for almost 30 years. So, like, how was that experience for you?
You know what, Mayans was an amazing experience, man. I worked with some amazing people, really cool people, man, down to earth people. And it definitely was. I was just happy to be there. It was a privilege, man. I did work my tail off to get in there and to study my lines. I actually did have an acting coach. I did all the things that I had to do to sell the part and to not embarrass myself or to disappoint the people that co-signed for me. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to disappoint the people that were good to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it was working with Emilio Rivera, JD, Pardo and which is Easy and Angel and Coco and all those guys on the cast. Rocco, that's my homie right there. Rocco Vincent Vargas. That's his father's is the legendary cutman, Carlos. So that's his son. Army Ranger, he's a stud. With all the great folks that I work with, Elgin James and Debbie Moore, Munoz, the writers. It was an experience, man, and Frankie Loyal, all those guys, man, Creeper. One thing that I did enjoy about it, guys, is that this is the first time that it was a primarily Latino cast. And they had given Latinos an opportunity to have leading roles. And from Sons of Anarchy to this transition into Mayans, it has taken off. So it was awesome to be a part of that transition and to be a part of the show. And it was just a good opportunity that they gave me to be a part of something special.
Can you give us a peek behind the curtain? Because you're so busy, did you know that you probably had to have a limited role, which was the end of season 2 and then working through season 3? Or by your choice, could you have kept this thing going? Because I was sad to see you go.
I don't have a choice in nothing, brother. So I didn't have a choice in anything. When I was told that I was going to have my amazing exit and I was going to die, it sucked. But, I had a good run, man. I was in it for 2 seasons. I'm still doing stuff with the show, some more behind the scenes stuff. That'll be something that I can talk about later as it progresses. But there's something down the road that's coming with the Mayans. It's going to be very interesting. So I'm still a part of what they got going on. I did not have a choice. You don't have a choice. The writers are the ones who write you, and then at the end of the day, they can take you out. But it's a show that everybody gets killed. So, something's going to head you up when you're playing the role of a gangster and some fool. It's not going to work out for you, brother. So at some point, every dog has their day.
Yeah, but you're an MMA guy, man. I could have used a few more seasons, and then if you had to roll, you had to roll. But
I
that's
know, dude. I know, man.
I mean, you're the
Yeah.
part. You're the actual part. You know, you ride. I've seen your bike. You know, I think you call it the Bicla or something like that.
La Chola. They call it
Yeah,
I call it La Chola. That's my bike, man. Yeah, that's my Bicla.
and
Yeah.
so you're the part, and you know, it's just fun to root for MMA guys and gals when they get these opportunities. So that's why I say it that way, I guess. I mean, you know, I can't control how they write the show, but it just stung. You know, I was like, fucking A when I saw it happen. I was so mad.
Yeah, it hurt, man. But you know, it's brother, man. I'm one of these, just like in MMA. Just like in MMA, man, it's a privilege to be where I'm at. It's not a sense of entitlement, bro. You know, it's something that I take very serious, and that's something it's a beautiful thing, bro. It's something that it's a privilege, and I work every event as if it's my last, and I give everything I have in everything I do, and being a part of this show was a privilege. It wasn't a sense of entitlement. I wish I would have had an opportunity to stay there longer. You know, it would have been great. But you know, who knows what other doors are going to open down the road? And if other doors open, then hey, man, I'm going to walk through it, and I'm going to explore it. And if nothing else comes of it, brother, I'm blessed, man. I was a part of an amazing show, an amazing cast that most people don't get an opportunity to do, such as MMA. So that's how I look at things.
Okay. Well, because of your fascinating careers, we'll transition in a sec. But I do want to give Goz an opportunity. Goz, do you want to ask Mike any Mayans-related questions? Because Goz is as big of a fan of the show as I am, and that even goes back to Sons of Anarchy. We just love those shows. Go ahead, Goz.
Well, I was going to reserve my stupid question for the end of the interview, but because it has to do with the Mayans, every time I think we've ever run into you at some point in person, we've had a question about the beard and what it would take for you to cut it. And we've gotten close, I think, in the past, but it usually revolves around how about I take the scissors and stab you guys with it. But I figured one out. What about this? The producers call you in from Mayans and they go, guess what? Your character got a twin brother. Exactly like you, but no beard. You want the part? What happens? You take the part? He's never going to break, George. He's never going to break. There's no scenario we could ever give him. We would never do it.
No.
No?
No, it's not. No, it's not negotiable. No.
Hey, Mike, why haven't you checked them? It's mustache, not beard, right?
It's a mustache,
Yeah.
My bad.
Mustache. Yeah.
So
he checked me in Sacramento when I was asking him. When I saw you for 2013, I think I said beard, and you go, first of all, it's a mustache, and that finger was like right by my nose. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, mustache.
He came home and he goes, I think I got closer, but I still gotta know. And I remember Trig said it's impossible. It's impossible. We're like, all right. But
yeah. Nah, it ain't gonna happen. It's just.
Let me ask you this: when you run into people from high school, from junior high, when people go, "Hey, do you know what Mike Beltran does now?" What do you think they would guess if they didn't know what you actually do? And if they did know that you did acting and MMA reffing and all that, which one seems more believable for them? If you had to guess.
I mean, people that know me know that I was a deputy first.
Mm-hmm.
That I was a cop. Because I worked the area that I grew up in East LA. So it's kind of, they saw me out on the street, or I handled calls for service, whether a shooting or something, horrible happened to them, or they were victims of crimes. So that would probably be the first thing. Those that are from East LA, they would know that they know that I'm a cop. But, in general, from the surface, from like, what do you think I would do by the way I look? I'd probably think I'm, I don't know, I'm some biker or something.
No, not by the way you look, just by the way you were in high school. So sometimes we'll get fighters, they go, dude, I was never even in a fight or in trouble in school. So when I tell them I'm a fighter, they all trip out. What do you think people would just assume that you did with your life?
100%, 100%, no doubt about it. I was going to be a cop. I knew I wanted to be a cop since I was a kid. I followed in my cousin's footstep, who joined the Marines and became a cop, and he worked out of Inglewood, PD, and I did everything my cousin did. He grew up in La Puente, and we didn't grow up with a whole lot of stuff. I grew up in East LA, they were in La Puente, and we didn't have a whole lot of anything, and to just like him, and it is with me, with my cousin, is that we just felt it was important to be a part of our community and serve it, and there was no question about it that I was going to be a cop. This is my dream job. This is my dream job. I get the best of both worlds out of three worlds. I get to be an MMA referee as well, and I'm also acting, which is something that I really enjoy, and I have a blessed life, man. Life is, it's been good to me. So there's 100% I was going to be a cop, no doubt.
We used to do a lot of military trips, right? And we would take fighters with us, and right away that connection between the fighters and the military was very quick. They would bond because they shared a lot of similarities. Within your worlds that you've lived in, what would you say is the one intangible that, working with the police, being an MMA ref, being an actor, what's the one intangible that all three have?
I think that's a very good question. And I think one thing that's the glue that holds everything together, we all love MMA. We all love MMA. You can always talk about fights. You can always talk about fighters. You can talk about certain fights, what fight really you loved, what fight you didn't like. I can't believe this fighter lost. It's something that's a good talking point. And the glue that holds everything together, and it's an excellent piece of conversation, is MMA. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing.
Mike, I read up on you a lot before we did this, and I want to parlay a little bit of what Goes was saying, about your early life. You seem very focused, following your cousin's footsteps, Marines, and then you went to the LA Sheriffs. But was this always a story of Mike Beltran wanting to do the right thing, or was this the type of a story where it was a turnaround? Like, how were you as a kid? Did you get in any trouble, or did you actually not, I guess, and make your parents proud? Which I know that you and your sisters have, because you've acquired degrees and you guys have done so much as a family, and a lot of it you attribute to them pushing you. But did Mike Beltran, throw rocks through windows, get in fights, do any bad stuff at all at the bowling alley, Downey, somewhere?
Oh boy, you know what? You asked a question, I'm going to answer it. I was always a good kid, but I did get into stuff. I went through 4 different high schools. I got kicked out of 3 high schools in 1 year, when I was a kid. I hated bullies, and I was always fighting when I was a kid. Whether they were picking on my cousins or a good friend or something like that, I always stood up to the bully. I just didn't like bullies. I hate, I just don't like people taking advantage of people. And I grew up boxing as a kid. Not that I wanted to show what I knew, because I don't think I was the greatest boxer, but I was okay, more on the sucking side, but I trained. But I always stood up for what I believe it was right. That doesn't necessarily mean I was right either, because I ran around with the wrong crowd, when I was a kid. Growing up in the neighborhood and bouncing around from place to place. Garfield High School was my 4th high school, and that's where I ended up at. And I went there 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year. So I went to all these different schools as a kid in 9th grade, and I was a good kid with good intentions. I was not a part of gangsters. I never liked I never liked cholos. I never got down with gangs. I always thought cowards run in packs. So that wasn't my thing. But, when it came down to a ditching party and an opportunity to play spin the bottle with some chicks in ninth grade, I was all about it. So, you get a Boone's Farm bottle, you spin it, and, I was all about that, and playing quarters and, little parties and backyards and stuff. And it got me into some trouble because I ran with the wrong crowd. And, but, I'm a kid, and I was a kid then, and you grow up and you live and learn. But no, was I a nightmare for my parents? Yes, that's why I love them so much for putting up with me and leading me in the right direction and not giving up on me. And that's what you do as parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then you go to the Marines, and then you go to you become a sheriff. And I read that yes, you wanted to be stationed near where your neighborhood was because you wanted I guess was that a form of giving back and also reaching out to the younger Mike Beltrans, the younger youths, to show them that that you can turn it around. I mean, look, almost every boy probably gets into some trouble, but at some point you just got to figure it out, and become a member of society, a responsible one. Was that kind of like why you wanted to stay local like that?
You know what? There was no question in my mind what station I was going to work. I knew I was going to work East LA Sheriff Station, and I was there for many years. And it was important to me. It wasn't. I didn't even think of anything else. I knew that was my number one choice. That's where I wanted to go. I didn't have a problem working the area that I grew up in because I didn't treat people, like crap. I treated people the same way I wanted my mother to be treated. I was always straight up. There was no reason to treat anybody any different. I think I was always very fair. I'd kick a lot of people loose for small things, and I wouldn't sweat the small things. And I definitely didn't give tickets because I couldn't give someone a ticket for stuff that I would do. So we didn't give tickets at East LA Station. We let that for the Highway Patrol to do. I don't give tickets. I think I've given less than 3 tickets, and that's because I was on training in 27 years I've been working. So it was important to me to go back to the area that I grew up in, and if there's a whole lot of Boy Scout still in me, and if you're a cop, I think a lot of us have it, and you have to have that good, wholesome stuff. You want to do the right thing, as cliche as that sounds. You want to do the right thing for people, and you got to be real, and you can't sweat the small stuff. There's letter of the law and there's spirit of the law. And if you're going to give someone a break for something small that's going to help them out down the road, you go with your heart, as long as they're not doing something that's egregiously criminal, and you let them go. There's a lot of things. We have a lot of leniency what we can do. So that's kind of how I policed.
3 tickets in 27 years. That's amazing. But you remind me of Hodges from Colors. That's an 80s reference. I think we're similar in age. Do you understand who I'm talking about? Robert Duvall. Yeah. He talked to the community, you know what I mean? And he seemed to get farther that way. Granted, there's a part of the plot where maybe it stings him a little bit because he may have let one of the bad guys go. But regardless, it's a movie. But I remember loving that movie and just loving his role, because as a young guy, I felt like there was sometimes where cops weren't like that, and it didn't come off well, and I never wanted to grow up hating authority because they were just doing their job.
That's a good reference, but I also was raised, my parents my dad comes from Culiacan, Sinaloa, and my mom from Tepehuanes, Durango. And we were raised to respect authority. We were raised to yes sir, no sir, law enforcement. My parents were very thankful and grateful to being here, and they worked their tails off, and we saw that, and we saw that they never spoke negative about cops, and now, there was no reason for the cops to come to our house unless, or anything like that, or my tios or friends, because we weren't doing anything crazy, but the neighbors were, and we just knew just to stay away, and that's their get down. I'm just going to stay over here before some bullets start flying, you know, and you just kind of mind your P's and Q's. And I didn't see anything, man. Just look the other way. It's none of my business, man. But you stay in your lane and you stay in yours and we're straight.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, since I brought up colors, 2-1, man, does that really exist, 21st Street Gang? Because I know White Fence is real, the Crips and the Bloods, but was 2-1 made up, or are there people rolling, you know, the Scoops of East LA with that one?
Man, the only one that is 1111th Street, Ranker. Remember that one? Boulevard Nights?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
man.
so.
Big BGV. That's an old school one. 2-1 is no, man. That was Hollywood, just like Boulevard Nights.
Not unbelievable. Yeah.
You know, but it's a good storyline, man.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now. I'm gonna blow your mind. Guess who was in that movie that you probably don't know?
What's that?
I said I'm gonna blow your mind right now. Guess who was in that movie that you probably missed?
Rico Suave.
No, he was in the movie, but you didn't miss him. But we know that Don Cheadle's in it, Robert Duvall, Sean Penn. But I'll give you one more guess.
Maria Conchita Alonso.
Yeah, she's in it. She's a big star. Mario Lopez is in it. Have you seen him? Yeah, he's one of the young guys when they're doing 2-1 and they're walking up that, you know, it looks like they're going uphill. And Larry Looney Tunes. He's kind of off to the side, and he doesn't. I don't think he has any speaking parts, but he's in it, right, Goes? You can co-sign.
Yeah, he's just walking through. He doesn't say anything, but you could see his face.
Wow, man, his hair must have been on point, man. He was all feathered and combed back, I bet.
Nice. It was before Bayside. Yeah.
That's right, man. Yeah, man, before he was Slater, man. His hair was on point as Slater as well.
Yeah.
Good for Mario, man. Yeah, he's representing San Diego, man. Good for him.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's transition to MMA. Again, what a career. You know, I believe Joe Camacho was an influence in your life through jiu-jitsu, and I think he put you in contact with John McCarthy. And I guess more than anything, when you saw MMA, you knew you wanted to be a part of it. What drew you to the referees?
Well, what drew me to referee, back then I was training at and I still train at New Breed Academy, right? And back then there used to be a lot of fighters I would train at, or Charlie Valencia, which is my best friend. Obviously Joe Camacho, rest in peace, would train there. That was like we grew up together, and I would go to the fights to go support them, right? And I would look at the referees, and I would see them, you know, go through their progression and everything else, and I told myself, you know what, I think I can do that. So I asked my instructor, which is John Owano and Johnny Ramirez, but John Owano was the one who made the first glove for the UFC. And he was Big John's friend. And that's where the connection happened, was through John Owano. And he told me that, yeah, you know what, I got a friend, his name is Big John McCarthy. I go, you know Big John? He goes, yeah, he's a homie. I'm like, oh my God, you know. And the connection was made with Big John, and the rest is history, man. You know, John has taken me under his wing. I love him and his family to death. You know, they're just amazing people. He's a solid dude. There's nothing I would do There's nothing I wouldn't do for John, because of the human being that he is, how he is, where his heart's at. You know, he's yelled at me a lot. You know, no one's yelled at me more in this sport than Big John has. But he does that because he cares, and he knows he can give it to you straight, you know. And I've learned so much. I always learn from John. I listen to his podcast, Weighing In. Yeah, it's amazing, because you got John breaking stuff down, and Josh Thompson is a good partner for him to have on that podcast. And they work well with each other, and there's nothing but compliments I can say about Big John, and he has helped me out. I still call him for personal things, MMA things, and I always learn from John no matter what. So he's helped out not only me, but he's helped out so many people that want that knowledge. He's got it. He'll give it to you, and if you listen to him and you do what he says, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, well, so Goes and we live in Vegas now, but we're originally from the mean streets of Santa Ana, so just a little south of you. But we've always rooted for the SoCal guys, you know, and I really enjoyed watching you and Herzog kind of rise through, you know, a lot of the California shows, and then saw you a lot at Bellator. Can you talk about that journey of the ref and how you don't just walk into title fights? I mean, literally, it's a long progression. Is it determined by just the history of the sport, commissions, or maybe even the other senior refs? Do they kind of give a nod as to when they know you all are ready for those main events and the title fights? And did it ever test your patience?
Well, to get to a title fight and work your way to the top is pay your dues. You have to have repetitions. You have to make good calls. You have to have the senior official support you and take their constructive criticism and take it well and don't be retaliatory towards it, and argue. And there's times where you need to hold your ground on certain things, and then you talk about it later, where in fact you were right, and this sport here is with the officials is that good thing that everything's videotaped so you can go back and watch it and learn. But it's just, you got to pay your dues, man. Nothing happens overnight. If you're that guy or gal that wants to get through this whole thing because you have a sense of entitlement, you're going to get exposed, because even at this high level, we still make mistakes. There's stuff that I wish I could take back that I've done, and there's stuff that I wish I could get a redo, or, we all talk about it, and you got to pay your dues. And then the commissions eventually develop trust in you. The fighters have trust in you. They believe in you that you're going to make the right decision, which is paramount, which is safety of the fighter. And if you do that, and it takes time, and you don't rush the process, brother. You just don't. You rush the process, it's a recipe for disaster, because you're going to have incompetent officials that want instant gratification without paying your dues, and they don't belong there. That's my opinion.
Well, like I say, it's really, really rewarding for us to watch people that have contributed so much eventually get that platform. You brought up Josh Thompson earlier, and I remember Thompson versus Diaz was high profile for you. And then Fedor versus Mir in Chicago was another one that was big. I mean, you've got a lot of them, Mike. I realize that, but I'm saying to connect with what the casual audience thinks of big fights, because I tell everybody, the guy that's fighting in San Manuel or something like that in the main event, that's his Super Bowl. So I don't ever want to diminish those fights. And I'm talking about, again, the ones that correlate with the casuals. But and then recently seeing you with Figueiredo and Moreno, that's got to be super rewarding for you. And I want to know, what does your family think of that career, the way it blossomed, along with what you've been able to contribute as a deputy and now detective for LA Sheriffs?
You know what? Like I said, it's a privilege, man. My family's very supportive of what I do. My lady's very supportive. I have a good supporting cast here at home, and as well as my close knit friends. But the progression and everything that has happened, it's rewarding because I did it my way. I went through all the local level shows, the club shows, and worked my way to the top. And doesn't mean that I cannot work the lower level shows, because a fight's a fight and you get experience. I still do, with the exception of this pandemic, all of us, not just me, Jason, Frank Trigg and Jason Herzog, myself, all these other, Big John Wood, Herb, we all have done amateur shows, and we still do them. So why do we do it? Because we want to get better. In addition to getting better, we learn as we're going along, and it keeps you relevant. It keeps you sharp. So when you do a big show, so whether it's a high level, mid level, or amateur show, you try to get in as much reps as you can. My family has supported it. They're proud of what I have done, and it's at any given day, guys, this can get taken away, which is why it's a privilege. I can't stress that enough. It's a privilege to be here, and you take that every time you get into, whether you do an amateur show, I treat them as if they're UFC. It's a UFC main event because they deserve that. They deserve the best of you. It's a tough way to make a living. It's an honorable profession, but it's a very tough way to make a living being a fighter. And they need officials that are going to give them the best of them. And that's how I look at things, and that's my motto in my head. And I'm happy to be here.
I remember when Herb Dean won one of his awards for best referee, he said, thank you all, obviously, for giving me this award, because it was given to him by the fans. The fans vote on it, the World MMA Awards. But I remember one part of his speech was, it can sometimes be a thankless job. How do you feel about it? Like, we live in a day where social media, like, you do one wrong thing or something that's considered wrong in somebody's opinion, and it's like a catastrophe, but there's not enough attaboys. And I know you guys aren't really fishing for those, but, really, this sport isn't what it is without people like yourself and John and Herb and Jason and Frank and everybody else getting in there and doing something that very, very, very few people on this planet can do. I've often told John, because he's been in our studio a lot, I just think you should all get paid a lot more, because there's not many of you that have those nerves of steel to do what you do. But do you still love doing what you do, and do you see yourself doing this like for how much longer?
I'm going to do this job. I mean, I love what I do. It's a passion. I love it. I get excited about getting an assignment. I get excited over working at UFC or a Bellator or any show, especially the big ones, which is what you strive for, is to work the big shows and do the big fights. So long as I'm healthy, so as long as I don't lose a step or too many steps where I'm going to be a danger to a fighter because of my pride, I'll continue doing it until I'm no longer capable of doing this physically or mentally. And at that point there, I would rather do kind of like what Big John did, walk away gracefully, than being that guy that, hey, dude, it's time for you to step down. I don't want somebody to tell me. I'll know where I'm at, even if it takes somebody to tell me that cares for me, but I would rather do it on my own terms. But you got to be real with yourself. So long as I'm healthy, God willing, I stay healthy for a while, but I'm here to stay for as long as I can, so long as, I'm competent enough to do this job. Then I'll stick around.
I just realized, between talking about Mayans and Mario Lopez and colors, we were a little bit past the time that we had talked about. I hope you were okay on time, and I apologize that we extended it a little bit.
It's all good, bro. It's all good.
Okay. So I just want to close with this. Obviously, the fans being back is tremendous. People love the fans. It's the big shows and everything. But what's been the experience for you with no fans versus fans? Do you prefer anything? And I hope you don't think it's a dumb question, because I'm wondering if maybe your communication with fighters is better when it's more quiet, and obviously you're thinking safety, not, are the fans enjoying? I mean, I know you want the fans to enjoy the fight, but your job has to do so much with communication and safety. What do you prefer? What setting?
I mean, obviously the crowds is amazing. You can hear the roar of the crowd, the electricity in the crowd. I mean, how loud that was in Phoenix when the Moreno fight and Figueroa, that card was just electric. Obviously crowds and being there is good, and it's amazing. Man, it's just insane. Having a crowd is the way to go, because it's a full MMA experience. But without a crowd, it's funny that you asked that question, because when I'm in there, I don't hear much of anything. I'm focused on, I'm looking for fouls. I'm looking to see if a fighter's hurt. I'm looking for the next big thing that's going to end this fight, and positionally where I'm going to be at. What side I'm on is I'm looking at, is this guy taking more? Because you see a lot of things that the camera doesn't pick up. So I try to be on the side that I think the fighter is going to be hurt, where I can make a stoppage. you know, and those are the things. And in my mind, it's quiet in there, believe it or not, until there's a sequence ending blows, or like, you know, a guy gets dropped and then there's some ground and pound, or a submission is being you know, about to happen. And this is how educated the crowd is in the sport, that they're like, they know exactly what that submission is. And then they know the evolution of it and how the outcome is going to be. And if you can defend it, then the crowd goes nuts. Then it wakes you up. You're like, whoa, man, it's loud in here. But for the most part, the crowd is the way to go. But being in there when it's quiet, it's kind of quiet in there for me when I'm officiating. Even though I can hear the crowd, it's like a buzz, but not a super quiet without a crowd. But it's kind of a similarity, but 100% the crowd's the way to go.
There you go. All right, Mike. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for jumping on here with us. Again, we've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Frank has said so many good things about you. He considers you a mentor. The same way you spoke about John McCarthy is the way Frank talked about you. I don't know if you know this, but he used to co-host Tag Radio with us years ago when we first got started. He actually helped us tremendously. So we keep in contact with him, and it's been great to see him go from fighter to now stuntman and MMA ref. But he really does think the world of you. Even when he talks about how Beltran yelled at me, you know, or whatever. But that's the way he grows. So yeah, anyway,
Frank is great, man. He's a good dude, man. Frank and I we're very close. You know, I love his wife as well. I got nothing but love for Frank, and it's Frank has picked up the slack from us getting yelled at, so he's the one that he's the guy that gets chewed out now. And Frank takes it on the chin and keeps on trucking. But it is fun messing with Frank, though. I kind of like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully things are already clearing up, but as things really start to pick up at the end of the year and everybody's jumping around, we'd love to have you in our studio at Mandalay Bay, maybe do a part 2, because again, such an interesting life that you lead, and I'm glad the audience got to hear some of it. You know, your acting, your work with LA Sheriffs, and of course your great job that you do for many years, almost 2 decades as a ref and judge. So thank you, Mike, for the time today.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much, and you guys be safe, man. Thank you.